Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda and this is my channel, Her Pacific Northwest Washington Life. And today I have for you my December wrap up. So December was a pretty busy month for me. I participated in 4 week-long readathons and 1 month-long readathon, I think. 2 month-long readathons. Anyway, I participated in a lot of readathons, one of which I hosted myself. And I got a lot more reading done than I had originally anticipated I would be able to, which is great. So the first book I want to kick it off with, this isn't in any particular order. It's honestly just how I wrote it down in my my bullet journal that I use for tracking my monthly reads. So this isn't like the order I started or finished or anything like that. It's just an order. So the first book I have is Christmas Eve 1914, and this was an Audible original story that I got last year during Christmas time, I think. This was just 1 hour and 13 minutes, and it's basically the story of Christmas Eve in the trenches on World War One. Yeah. World War One, and it's kind of a story following a specific group of men who are obviously fighting in the trenches over no man's land. And it follows the British officers mostly, and one is kind of writing diary entries and letters home to family members and things like that about what they experienced, and it's how they called a ceasefire with the Germans and the French soldiers on Christmas Eve so that they could have time to gather their men from no man's land, either those that were wounded or those that died in the line of fire, and that way they could bury their men or tend to the wounded, and how they just kind of pulled themselves out of the heavy wartime where thinking each nationality is their enemy, and just bonding and realizing again that these men are all human and they're all going through the same thing. They're all separated from their family as well. They're all starving. They're all wet and cold. They're injured and things like that. So it was a really great story. I gave it a 4-star rating. And I think it could definitely be one that I listen to each year during Christmas time, just to kind of be remembered of that time period and what people had to go through in order to create the world that we live in now. The next book I have on my list is Snow and Love, and this is an anthology of 4 stories that were written around the holidays in December. This was 272 pages on my Kindle, and I gave it an average of 3-star rating. The first story I really liked, and then the last 3 were just kind of mediocre for me. They weren't anything super special. And to be honest, I kind of blanked on what the last stories were, and I've confused a couple of them. But it was cute. I think Melissa De La Cruz was the editor of this, and it was a nice little kind of cutesy read. I was able to get 1 story in the anthology done each night, so it took me just 4 nights to read, and that was nice to just kind of have short Christmassy time, holiday time stories to read through. The next book I have on my list is The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. And I own the physical copy, but I actually listened to this through Scribd, and it was 14 hours and 38 minutes, and I gave this a 3-star rating. We follow Cora, whose husband passes away, and she kind of flees to the coastal town of Essex. And when she gets there, she hears rumors of this serpent that is stealing people more or less, and kind of killing them, and just causing a lot of mayhem and just a lot of fear throughout the town and stuff. So she starts investigating, and she's introduced to a parish vicar named William. And as they attempt to discover the truth of what the Essex Serpent is and what's behind it, there's some things that happen that shouldn't have happened and things like that. So it's kind of about Cora's past following her to the coast and the consequences that arise from that, and just kind of how she deals with it and tries to build a new life for herself. I personally really did not like Cora as a character. She reminded me a lot of Anna Karenina in Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy, where she just seemed like the world owed her everything, which I didn't like. So it was not the easiest thing for me to enjoy getting through, just because I didn't like the character we were following. So it was okay. I'm not sure that I would ever read this again, though, but it's a beautiful cover. The next book I have is A Breath of Snow and Ashes by Diana Gabaldon. I own all of the published books right there, but I've been listening to these on audiobook since the first book. The first book I read on Kindle, and after that I've read them all on audio, on Scribd. And this was a 57-hour and 41-minute audiobook that I started in November. It carried over into December for me, and I gave this one a 4-star rating. It was probably one of my more favorites of the series that I've read so far. And I liked the story and how it continued. I liked the characters we're following. I liked the things that were revealed. I'm just enjoying these stories and going through them, and I'm really excited that I'll be able to finish the last two here, probably January and February of 2020. So that'll be nice. The next book I have on my list is The Greatcoat by Helen Dunmore. This was a 196-page book that I gave a 3-star rating, and in this we follow Isabel Carey, who moves to Yorkshire with her husband. He's her new husband. They've only been married for 2 months, and he's a doctor, but he's also kind of going through his internship still, so he is working long hours and on call all the time, so they're not really having a lot of time to be able to grow and build their relationship together as a married couple. And Isabel really hates where they live in Yorkshire. She really does not like the landlady. And it's during the winter time, and it's super cold, and they don't have enough blankets, so Isabel goes searching for more blankets in the cupboards, and she comes across an RAF greatcoat that has been pushed in the far back of a high-up cabinet, and so she uses that as a blanket, and then she starts to get visits from this RAF pilot named Alec, who was a pilot during World War II, I believe is when this takes place. This is after World War II. It takes place in 1952, but I believe the story, like the pilot himself, was in World War II. So it's kind of going through Alec's life and living that out with Cora as this new kind of pivotal point in that. It's an interesting kind of mystery story, kind of ghost story, and I enjoyed it. So I think this one was a good find. The next book I read was a buddy read with my friend Darshell over at Books and Planners, and we finished out the Mortal Instruments series with City of Heavenly Fire. And I listened to this on audiobook as well. It was 20 hours and 39 minutes, and I gave it a 3-star rating. Very predictable story. Characters are still young and obnoxious, and I'm glad to have wrapped it up. I really don't have much more to say about it. I think I definitely missed the train on this. I don't have the same nostalgic feelings that people my age do around this series because they grew up with it. For me, I wanted to know what the hype was about, and I don't understand the hype. So I'm glad to have the series over. I think I will continue and just read. Now we would be into the more like short story collections before we get into the Dark Artifices series. So it'll be a nice break though to have finished this in December, and now we don't have to like jump into the next book or anything within the series. We can kind of wait a couple months before we decide if we want to jump back into the world of the Shadowhunters. So the next book I have on my list is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This was another buddy read for me. I met the lady I buddy read this with on Twitter because we were both participating in the Reindeer Readathon and we were on the same team. And I believe her name is Layali, but I'm not entirely sure if that's how it's pronounced. But we buddy read this together. We split it up into about 30 pages a night, which was around 3 to 4 chapters. And we were both physically reading it at the start. But then the Christmas holiday really bogged us both down, just kind of reading time wise. So we both picked it up on audiobooks, and I finished listening to it via audiobook. I was really enjoying my physical read of this, so I would love to reread it again. And I felt like I was drifting a bit more and paying less attention during the audiobook. But I really fell head over heels for this. I don't remember if I said it was 17 hours and 20 minutes, and I gave it a 4-star rating. And I just really enjoyed the March family. Pretty much everyone except for Amy. I really don't like Amy. But it was just a sweet story, a sweet family relationship and dynamics. An interesting time period for it to be set during. It was set during the American Revolution, I think. Or was it the Civil War? It might have been the Civil War. I think it was the Civil War. But yeah, I just enjoyed this a lot. I loved reading from different points of views and the chapters kind of being snippets throughout the year versus just like trying to follow a story continuously. And just watching them grow and their relationships blossom, and then them kind of like coming out into the world and finding love and all that other stuff. It was great. So definitely a book that I would love to reread again sometime in the next year or two probably. And then I listened to an audiobook called Miss Marley. This was very, very short. It was only 3.5 hours. And I gave it a 3-star rating. It's basically written as a prequel to Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And this follows the lives of Jacob Marley and his sister, and kind of weaves a story around how Jacob got to be how he was by the time we meet him in A Christmas Carol. It was decent enough. I thought it was a fun kind of prequel to the story, just to gain a bit more background and like character development into a character we meet somewhat in A Christmas Carol. But I'm not sure it's something that I would reread or re-listen to. Then I also read 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston, and this I read on my Kindle. It was 336 pages, and I gave it a 4-star rating. I loved this book so much. I'm not a big contemporary person, but this was just so much fun. And again, I think the big part for me was that it centered around a large family that just had a really good relationship with all the members of the family, well, most of the members of the family. Basically, our main character overhears her boyfriend talking about how, at a party with his best friend, about how he is thinking he kind of wants to take a break or break up with his girlfriend, and that upsets her. So in her mind, they're broken up because he wanted to be. And her grandma decides that she's going to set her up on 10 blind dates throughout the Christmas and New Year time period while she's staying with them. And it's just kind of a way for her to heal a little bit and to have fun. And it was super predictable, but I just loved it so much. I'm glad that I don't have to date anymore, but it was fun to kind of live vicariously through a book character. And the next book I listened to was Serious Moonlight by Jen Bennett, which was 12 hours and 5 minutes. I gave this a 3-star rating, and I thought it was fun. It was set in Seattle, in and around Seattle, Washington, which is a place I'm very familiar with. Actually, the main character, she lives on this island called Bainbridge Island, which is just a short, like 30-minute ferry ride from downtown Seattle. And it's also a place I know pretty well. So it was fun to have landmarks that I know be present in a book. The story was cute and interesting. We follow our two main characters who kind of have a one-night stand, and it makes the main character, whose name I'm completely blanking on right now, but she freaks out just a tad bit and runs away. And then come to find out, they are actually co-workers. She starts working at this hotel in downtown Seattle, and he is a kind of parking attendant, car driver, that sort of thing. So she's really into detective stuff, and he finds that out, or knows that from their time chatting together when they had their one night stand, and decides that there's a mystery surrounding a mystery novel author that he wants her to help him solve. So it's just kind of all of their little shenanigans, and then watching their relationship grow and things like that. So it was cute. That's it. It was cute. I read quite a few contemporaries this month, which is not typically something I do, but I enjoyed them for the most part. The next book I have on my list is Vampire Night Volume 4 by Matsuri Hino, and this is a 197-page book that I think I just gave a 3-star rating. It's just a progression now of the story. We follow Yuki and Hiro, who are I can never remember what they are, but they are guardians of the school, where there is a day class and a night class, and the day class don't know that the night class is 100% vampires. We've got a big bad pureblood vampire in this one who comes to shake things up a little bit and just kind of progress the story. So it was cute, quick read. I think I read it in one day, just a couple hours, and it was for readathon prompt, so that's why I picked up a not very wintry Christmas holiday book in December, but it was fun. The next book I don't have with me, but it's Out of Oz by Gregory Maguire. I've been reading this book since October, and I only read 21 pages this month, so I still need to finish it. It's the only book I've carried over from 2019 into 2020. And with 208 pages left, if I don't finish it in January, I don't know what I'm going to do, but that's going to be one of my goals. So I'm not going to say much about it here. It's just the last book in the Wicked Years by Gregory Maguire, and we'll see what happens. The next book I have is another Kindle read for me, and this was Spindlefire. It was 368 pages, and I gave it a 3-star rating, and this is a Sleeping Beauty retelling. We follow two sisters. One is the bastard child of the king, and the other is the heir to the throne, essentially. Aurora and Isabel. And it's a little different kind of tale from Disney's Sleeping Beauty. in that Aurora still gets gifted 3 gifts from different fairies, and is obviously has the curse put upon her that on her 16th birthday she will prick her finger and die. So the last fairy to give her a gift changes that and then says she will fall into a deep sleep. So it's definitely a story a lot less about like falling in love and more about a sister relationship. So it's interesting. We ended on the brink of a war. So I am looking for, I think it's just a duology from what I can tell based off of Goodreads. We'll see though. So I think it'll be really interesting to pick up the next book soon and see how that ends and if it wraps up, and how it wraps up. If it's kind of similar to what we expected or expect from watching the Disney version of Sleeping Beauty, or if it'll be more of a, isn't that Hans Christian Andersen? I think that one is, or more of a darker fairy tale theme. So we'll see. And then I also have listened to the Christmas Hirelings. This was another short audiobook that was 3 hours and 53 minutes. I gave it a 3-star rating. It was pretty cute. It's about kind of a grumpy old man whose house is very lonely, and his companions decide that they are going to hire children in for the holidays just to make it seem more festive and fun. So these 3 children, their siblings, come into the house, and he really just falls head over heels for the youngest little girl. And she falls ill, and he is pretty devastated by that, and learns a little secret about the children that he didn't quite know. So he has to come to terms with that and learn to accept things that happened in the past and progress from there. So it was a very sweet story. Definitely one that I'd like to re-listen to as well, because I did kind of listen to it quickly just to finish up a reading prompt. So I feel like I missed a bit, but I think it would be good to give a re-listen to. The next audiobook I read was another Audible original, and this was After Anatevka by Alexandra Silver. And she was a Broadway performer in Fiddler on the Roof, and she played the character of Hodel, who is the second oldest daughter of Tevye. This was a very short production. It was 1 hour and 23 minutes. I gave it a 3-star rating, and it is kind of a mix between her telling the story that she wrote about Hodel and kind of giving her more of a past, and also performing some songs from Fiddler on the Roof, and then some original songs that were composed and written based off of her writing. So it was fun. I listened to it while I was reading. It was nice to just kind of be back in the Fiddler on the Roof kind of music, because I really do like the music in that movie, and just build a bigger background of one of the main characters. And then the last book I have on my list is The Life We Bury, which was an 8 hour and 23 minute audiobook that I gave a 4-star rating. I was not expecting at all to like this book as much as I did, but it reminded me so much of The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt, and also The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Steve Larson. And I just really enjoyed it. We follow our main character, whose name is Joe, and he is he's making his way through college, and there's a project he has to do, writing a biography about an older person, so whether it's a family member or what have you. He goes to a nursing home, assisted living home, retirement home, and the only person that the staff can think of that he could potentially write about, because a lot of the I don't want to say patients, but a lot of the people who live at this home are suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia. So the only person that's the most sound of mind is this guy named Carl, who was a convicted rapist and murderer, who has been released from a life sentence in jail because he is dying of pancreatic cancer. So Joe starts to talk with him and learns a lot more about Carl's story, and Carl decides, as his kind of dying, not wish, but his, I can't remember what they call it, but because he's dying, so it's his one chance to get everything out there again and just kind of wrap up the story and clear his conscience, more or less. So as Joe is researching this project, he also on the side is having to deal with his bipolar and alcoholic mother, as well as his autistic brother, and his, not roommate, she's apartment mate. She owns the apartment, or is renting the apartment across the way. She becomes involved in this as well, and it turns into much more of a mystery than what we originally thought. Joe thinks that he's really just gonna learn about this life of a convicted rapist murderer. But what he doesn't realize is that Carl is innocent and there is still a murderer on the loose. So I really enjoyed it. I really liked the characters, and I thought the plot of it was great as well. Maybe if I were more into mysteries, I probably would have felt like maybe this was redundant or something. But for me, it was just really intriguing, and I wanted to quickly finish the book so that I knew what happened, and I really cared about these characters and what was happening to them. So this book I really enjoyed, and definitely super unexpected for me to finish off the month with. So in total, I read 15 books this month. So for my physical reads on my physical books and my Kindle, I read a total of 1,390 pages, and I listened to a total of 83 hours and 8 minutes. And with my books all being rated between a 3 and a 4 star, that brought my average rating up for the month over past months up to 3.1. So I really feel like I ended December on a great note, or I ended 2019 on a great note, and definitely had a lot of surprising reads that I wasn't expecting. So I really hope everyone else had a fantastic reading month, and if you have read any of these books, please do let me know down in the comments below. I would love to chat with you about your thoughts on them as well, and I will speak with you there until my next video. Bye!